This is what happens when live TV news goes wrong. Welcome back, Charlie here. From people hijacking live news broadcasts to news anchors who were fired for what they did on air, these are the scariest live TV news moments of all time. Armed takeover. In January 2024, Ecuador declared a state of emergency. This was after conflict broke out between criminal gangs and Ecuador's government. The news channel TC was reporting on this live, but that's when viewers witnessed a shocking sight. Armed men broke into the studio and began to threaten the news anchor live on air.
No, vengan para acá, vengan para acá, vengan para acá. Vengan para acá, vengan para acá.
A woman can be heard pleading, "Don't shoot, please don't shoot." The criminals demand the news anchor say a message on their behalf. The studio crew were held hostage for 20 minutes live on air, with millions in the country watching this live. Police and military soon surrounded the TV station and thankfully arrested all of the criminals. The news crew were shaken, but okay. It really shows how vulnerable journalists are when order dissolves. These criminals wanted to take over the country, and an effective way of doing this is taking control of the media. Hijacker. In 2015, a similar yet more bizarre news hijacking took place. One evening in the Netherlands, news channel NOS was broadcasting as normal. That's when a 19-year-old wearing a suit walked into the studio. He had a weapon in hand and demanded to speak to someone from the American news channel CNN. The man allowed most of the staff to leave the room, but ordered some of the staff to stay in the room with him. He paced around holding his weapon. At one point he said the weapon is only in case things get crazy. He also tells one of his hostages not to worry, saying he is as nervous as they are. He says as soon as he speaks to someone from CNN they will all be free to go. But it's understandable the staff may not have believed him. The studio crew told the man they were contacting CNN, but really they were just stalling for time waiting for police. Soon police burst in and the man surrenders.
Ik laat het vallen. Ik heb het laten vallen. Ik heb het laten vallen.
It was later discovered the man's weapon was only a replica. The 19-year-old was later sentenced to prison time. But the bizarre thing is, no motive for why he did this was ever found. Robbed. One evening, Voyo Morocco was doing a report on SABC News in South Africa. That's when two men appear behind him. At first, he assumes they're simply there to troll and mess up the news report, as many people like to do. But it soon became clear the men's true motivations were much darker. The men attempt to rob the news crew. You can even hear the reporter saying, "We're being mugged."
Keep me. Hey, we're being mugged. We're being mugged.
Clearly, these guys weren't criminal masterminds, committing their crime live on TV news, with their faces clearly visible. This allowed the men to be easily identified and later arrested. But it was still terrifying for Voyo and his crew to experience this, as well as scary for viewers who saw this play out live. Bank robber. One day, this news reporter was at a bank in Iowa. He was reporting on the fact that just one day before, the bank had been robbed. That's when right behind him, a bank employee comes running out of the bank. He points to a man off camera saying, "That's the robber."
Tyler, just 24 hours ago, this bank in North... That guy right there. What? That's the robber. Oh, that's the robber.
It turned out the bank robber had returned to the scene of the crime. He had actually planned to rob the bank again, but decided to run away when he saw the news crew outside. The reporter is clearly stunned, but keeps his cool and even calls 911.
This is live TV, folks. That's the robber, just went by, according to the bank employee. So I gotta go here and call 911.
1 hour later, police arrested the robber, Ryan Liskow. I'm sure Adam never expected he would help catch the very criminal he was reporting on. Pass out. One morning, a news broadcast in Los Angeles was going as normal. But when the anchors pass over to the meteorologist, Alyssa Carlson, this happens.
This really is the calm before the storm.
Not again! No! Oh!
You know, we're gonna go ahead and go to break right now.
Yeah.
She passes out live on air, slouching over and falling to the ground. The news anchors are confused at first, but soon realize something is seriously wrong. It's not known why Alyssa passed out. 9 years ago, after getting sick on air, she discovered she had a leaky heart valve. But Alyssa said her fainting was unrelated. Thankfully, she was fine and posted saying that she's going to be okay. But it was still very scary for the crew and viewers to see this live. And it shows you never know when you might have a medical emergency. Scary man. man. In 2016, a reporter named Mary was in Hollywood. She was covering the passing of singer David Bowie. As she's reporting, a man in a grey hooded sweatshirt can be seen behind her smiling. But after a few minutes, the man randomly lunges at Mary. The camera pulls away and the crew step in to get him off Mary. He can be seen for a split second running away. But it's very scary the man did this live on TV, and seemingly for no reason. Despite this man's face being on TV, it's unknown if he was ever caught, and it just shows the real risks reporters face every day in the field. Taliban takeover. In 2021, Afghanistan was taken over by the Taliban. American troops fled and the Taliban took over government buildings. But the Taliban also took over all TV stations in the country. This news anchor had been broadcasting as normal, when suddenly a group of Taliban burst in. He looks and sounds terrified as he's surrounded by these men. The men order him to deliver a message, telling the people of Afghanistan not to leave the country. Since this, over 600 media companies in Afghanistan have closed, and female news presenters now have to wear veils. It must have been terrifying for this news anchor knowing that if he said the wrong thing, his life would be over. Thankfully, he was unharmed, but I'm sure it's a moment viewers will never forget. Mexico earthquake. In 2017, a Mexican news station was reporting live. That's when a massive 7.1 earthquake occurred. The set began to shake and lights started to flicker. Many alarms sounded and the reporter had to run for his life.
Ustedes ya saben qué es lo que tienen que hacer en este momento. Conservar la calma y evacuar de inmediato. Me voy a levantar y voy a evacuar.
The anchor initially told viewers to remain calm, but you could see how scared he really was. 361 people lost their lives, and a further 6,000 were injured. Earthquakes are common in Mexico, but this was one of the worst, and it's very rare to have one of these caught on live TV news. Table trouble. News debates can get fiery, but news anchors are still expected to maintain a level of professionalism. However, that's not what happened here. In 2014, two journalists in Jordan were debating the conflict in Syria, but soon things massively escalated. Mohammed al-Jayasi accused fellow journalist Shahir al-Jahari of supporting the Syrian opposition. The third news anchor tried to keep the men calm, but the two men started pushing the news desk back and forth, until eventually the whole desk broke. Eventually, security had to step in and remove the two men. This really is something you don't see every day on TV, and viewers were scared this could have escalated even further had security not stepped in. Stroke. One morning, Oklahoma news anchor Julie Chin was reporting as normal, but that's when she began to slur her words. It seemed like she was just making a mistake, as news anchors sometimes do, but when it kept happening, Julie realized something was going on.
Today at the event.
She then lost vision in one eye, which led to her saying she couldn't go on. Just moments before this, she was smiling and feeling great, but it turned out she had had a stroke live on air. Her colleagues recognized something was wrong and dialed 911. Some viewers who were watching this even realized she may have been experiencing a stroke, and called in to warn the station. Julie was rushed to hospital, but thankfully she was okay. It's amazing Julie maintained professionalism despite having a stroke. Her colleagues and viewers' quick thinking potentially saved her life. This shows how scary and unpredictable a stroke can really be. Los Angeles earthquake. Early one morning in 2014, two news anchors were reporting as normal, but that's when their set began to shake. The male anchor looks terrified and shouts, "We're having an earthquake."
Earthquake. Yep, we're having an earthquake.
The anchors then have to duck under their table, while the rest of their crew runs away. A reporter later said it was the strongest earthquake he'd ever experienced live on air. Earthquakes in Los Angeles are common, but one of the reporters said it was the strongest earthquake they'd ever experienced live on air. In the studio, these anchors have over 300 lights above their heads. Some of these weigh up to 25 pounds, so if they fell, the anchors could have been seriously injured or lost their lives. But thanks to their quick reaction times, they were okay. Distracted anchor. This live news moment outraged viewers, but not for the reason you'd think. In 2017, news anchor Natasha Exelby was caught daydreaming. She was reporting in Australia, but when cameras came back onto her, she was caught spacing out. She gasped and recovered quite well.
Now to sport with Meredith Shea.
But she was later fired after this. After this, many viewers were outraged. Not at Natasha, but instead at the station for firing her. They said she was fired simply for being a human being. Natasha tweeted saying, "Thank you all for your generous support. Not my finest hour. Myself and my mesmerizing pen honorably salute you." Natasha found humor in the situation, but many viewers still felt very bad for her. Some said it was unprofessional, but the vast majority said Natasha did nothing wrong and should never have been fired for this tiny mistake. But now it's time for you to make your voice heard. Which of these live TV news moments did you find the most wild? Leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you haven't already, then what are you waiting for? Subscribe to Top 10s.